We're live.
We are here. We are recording an episode of Business Velocity.
And we are ready to go.
Here we go.
Hey, thank you for joining us on Business Velocity. Oh, I was going to read that was very Minnesotan of me. I was going to read the outro, actually. Sorry.
Let's leave this in.
And episode 13. Welcome to Business Velocity through the Five Facets of Business podcast. We're your hosts, Dave Newell, Hannah Panuski. With our guests, with the exception of today, because we're talking to ourselves, we explore actionable insights and share stories of real businesses. Whether you're a startup or a seasoned business leader, understanding how to harness the five facets of your business will help you propel your growth to achieve business velocity. Hannah, what are you and I talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about the elements of velocity. So what helps a business just shoot right on forward? Based on the 10 years of working with companies and seeing what has helped them propel themselves to the growth that they've wanted to see, these are our elements of velocity. You got purpose, vision, strategic identity, core business, forecasting, and target market. So we're going to dive into each one of those. And it's funny that each one of those, I think, kind of touch on some of our recent episodes with some of our recent guests. So that's kind of cool. But I think I want to actually I'll let you speak to this more. Kind of why is it that those things really make up the velocity of a business, helping a business jump forward?
Yeah, maybe where I would start real quickly is just why we use the term velocity.
Sure.
I know we've talked about this before, but I think it just bears repeating.
Mm-hmm.
Velocity is speed with direction. A lot of folks talk about going fast. Hey, we need to hustle. We need to go fast. We need to move. We need to move. We need to move. And that's all well and good, right? But why we think about velocity, why we think about the elements of velocity is the difference between velocity and speed is velocity is direction aware. And so when we say the elements of velocity, what we're saying is like, look, these are the 6 things that guide that awareness. These are the direction, right? These are the 6 things that if you have these locked and loaded in your business and they are connected and they make sense together, velocity is the only option on the back end, because you have these pieces in place. So again, you mentioned, vision, purpose, core business, forecasting, target market, strategic identity. Any place you want to start? Where do you want to jump in?
Well, I will say for anybody who might be like, but it's called the 5 facets of business. Those elements of velocity actually tuck themselves inside of each one of the facets. So 5 facets of business, just little recap: story, operations, finances, strategy, culture, and what am I forgetting?
I think you just did 5.
Yeah. Oh, I did. I just didn't count them right on my hand. Awesome. So those are the 5 facets of business. These elements of velocity, like purpose, vision, those sit under strategy, obviously. Strategic identity as well. Forecasting, that would sit under finance. But we have seen that pieces of those 5 facets, if you really get those things nailed down, you have this really impactful core that helps you achieve that velocity. So I kind of wanted to touch on that real quick. But the one that I actually want to dive into first, because I do find it so crucial as a process operations, focused person, is core business. I think that a lot of, from my perspective, business owners actually start there. Is like they have a great idea. You have a great idea for like a product or a service. This is, we are a med spa. We offer, relaxing experiences that heal the whole body. Or we are to use the example that we were using earlier, we are a furniture manufacturing company. We offer really beautifully made beds. So somebody has an idea for a core business, and then they develop the business and they hire people and they start to finances comes into the mix and they create a company purpose and a mission statement, all this other stuff. And you also, I feel like you get so affected by the market and you can kind of get muddied up. Like, oh, wait, what was the original idea that we first had? So I think one of my favorite parts of these elements of velocity is coming back to that core business, reminding yourself, what is my stake in the ground? What is the main thing that we offer? So yeah, that's where my brain goes to first. Is there anything else that you want to speak to kind of on that vein?
Yeah, I mean, I think, core business is really the how, right? Like,
Yes,
how do we
totally.
actually do the thing we're setting out to do? And I think that's where a lot of folks start, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
a, like, to your point, like, we have this practical thing, we want to deliver this. Like, for us, it was, hey, we know we really can do some work in the management consulting space, organizational development space. And then you start to, so we got really clear about, like, well, what actually value do we add? Like, what are we good at? What can we do? Right? And how do we do it well? And so I think that's a really normal place to start, but it's also the answer to the question, how? How do we do it? And really, the elements of velocity, if you think about it, are kind of the basic questions that we would ask ourselves. Like, why do we do it? Like, why is this important? Where are we going? Right? Who are we doing it for? Like, those are some of the big, like, who, what, why, where, when, how. Like, all those questions are the questions that we're trying to answer here. And when you have the answer to those questions, you have clarity about the decisions that you need to make as you get deeper into execution and strategy. And so this is really, think about it as like a high level company story. This is what we're about. This is who's it for and what's it for
Mhm.
and how we do it. And if we can
Yeah.
answer those three questions, everybody in your company is on the same page, man, you've got alignment, right? Like, you've got people aligned at the highest place. And so the conversations that you have down the line about, well, should we do X, Y, or Z? It's like, well, which one of them allows us to do these velocity elements the best? And
Yeah,
now you've got,
which one aligns with our purpose? Which ones aligns with our vision? And then you can make those decisions. Or your mid-level managers can make decisions without you in the room if they know and adhere to the company purpose and the company vision.
yeah, precisely, right? Like, this is an alignment element. This is how, from a high level, that we have clarity about who we are, why we do it, where we're going, etc. And you enable everybody in your organization to be able to make those same decisions when they know what the answers to these questions are. Right? If you
Mhm.
don't know what your core business is, you don't know kind of financially where you're going, you don't know who it's for, what your target market is, you don't see the results that you can see when you know the answers to those questions. Right?
Mhm.
It's not to say that the answers have to be perfect. Right? You
Mhm.
don't need to know exactly the perfect target market the first time you step out and design it, right? But you should have a pretty good idea of who's it for. And so, what I want to do, so to your point about core business, this is essentially the answer to the question, what do we do?
Mhm.
Right? And this isn't, detailed 100 steps in a process, not, it's not a manufacturing process detailed from start to finish. It's, what is the core product or service that we offer? What is the thing? And the simpler, the better,
Mhm.
right? The more convoluted, the more complicated this answer gets, the more convoluted and complicated it feels to the people in your organization, and the more convoluted and complicated it feels to the people who are purchasing that product from you or
Mhm.
that service from you. So the clearer you are, the better. So the core business is essentially, what do we do, right? At its most basic fundamental level. And I want to talk about that in the context then of also who's it for, because those things should have a relationship. So what do we do and who's it for, right? That target market. What is it? What is the smallest group of people, the minimum viable audience, as Seth Godin calls it? What's the minimum viable audience for this product or this service that we offer? Who's it for? And the more explicit you can get around the answer to that question, the better your marketing gets, the better your sales get, the better your product gets, right? Everything enhances when you're really clear about who it's for. And like I was saying, it's not a simple exercise to do this, once and hope it works. Like, that target market might actually evolve over time as your product shifts or the market shifts or the economy shifts. There's lots of different factors that can influence that. But the target market also informs, what are our value propositions? What do we actually do? Right? Like, how do we actually provide value? So there's a strong relationship between those two.
Mhm.
Kicking it over to like purpose and vision. Now, this is a little bit, think about this as like, this is the future oriented. This is where we're going.
Mhm.
Right? So vision is all about the answer to the question, where are we going? Right? Not now, not in the next month, not in the next couple of weeks, but think about this really long term. And this should be something that doesn't necessarily have an end. Right? So you might say, like, we've got a client that says to facilitate the energy transition. Love that vision, right? Like we are the facilitators of the energy transition. The reason I like that vision is because I don't think that's an ending, right? But it is a clear target to what do we actually do? We facilitate it, right? So now that's a pretty clear
Right.
statement. So vision is all about where, purpose is all about why. Why do we do it? What is the meaning behind this? And I think, as you think about younger employees, as we talk about, even millennials, Gen Z are now entering the workforce pretty significantly. And there's a lot to be said about they want meaning. They want to know why their work matters, right? So if you don't
Mhm.
have purpose and if the work that you do doesn't connect to that, or your core business doesn't connect to your purpose, you might say, to end world hunger and then to do something totally different from a product perspective. Like those things have to actually line up in order for people to believe you.
Mhm.
All right, I'm rambling. How are we doing? I'm like,
We're
I
doing
can stop
great.
myself. Let's go through the whole list here.
I know Dave's background in higher education is coming out. He's gonna get up in there and monologue at
Full on,
the front of the
full on
class.
peace mode.
No, I I
And
I think that's really good. I mean, I think, target market can be so tricky sometimes for specific, businesses and companies to figure out. But I think, you can also to an episode that we did a couple weeks ago, you can also allow the data to tell you who your target market is, like make sure you're tracking your customer data and analyze it. Some of these pieces can be found out after the fact. Some of them, it would be nice to start off the company knowing these things, but sometimes you can, formulate this as you're going. So let some of the data, impact that as well. The one that Dave, I find the most challenging to facilitate with our clients is to figure out your strategic identity, because that, to speaking to, being convoluted, sometimes, if you are a company that offers a service that is quite common, maybe it is hard to figure out what then is my strategic identity. How are we different? So maybe speak to that a little bit.
yeah, so strategic identity is a term we use. I don't think this gets used in other spaces. So, this is actually kind of stems from a military concept around core intent. And so the general idea here is, if you're the general in the army and you're about to go into battle, what they realize is that the general would create this very detailed plan about, battle plan. Here's what's going to happen. Here's the high level target. Here's the things that we want to have accomplished on a battlefield. And then what would take place is the first shot would get fired and chaos would start to happen. And that very detailed plan would start to fall apart slowly but surely. And so what the military figured out is, if the general just said, hold the hill, that's the most important thing. That's the core intent of what we're trying to do here. Then the details would show up down the plan. But if chaos ensues and you're not really following on track and different things are happening, well, we know hold the hill at all costs, hold the hill. And strategic identity kind of works the same way in your organization, which is what is the thing that is the most important for us to focus on? This is the key priority in your organization. You might think about this as the most important value proposition. You might think about this as what's that piece that separates us from others, and how do we hang our hat on it? So a couple quick examples. Southwest Airlines is a clean example, which is to be the low fare airline. You might not like Southwest Airlines. You might love Southwest Airlines. Doesn't really matter what your opinion is. They have a really good example of a strategic identity, which is to be the low fare airline, right? So their strategic identity is about competing on price. That is one version of it, right? And for some people, that's great. And for others, they don't want to fly that. Cool. That's kind of the point, right? Is your strategy shouldn't be for everybody.
Mhm.
It should be a clear marker of what you care about.
Mhm.
And my all-time favorite example is quick trip gas stations. If you think about why do people go to gas stations, right? Yeah, to get gas, sure. But often it's also to pee, right? To use the bathroom on a road trip, to like be safe and comfortable in a bathroom. Their strategic identity is clean bathrooms. I think it's absolutely brilliant. You can't compete on Slim Jims or Mountain Dew or Coke or whatever, you're stopping there for. or gas even, like maybe a couple cents here and there price wise, but
Mhm.
really like what's the distinguishing factor of why we decide to go? Bathrooms. And if you've ever been to one, they're absolutely designed from a building structure perspective to have you enter right into these big, beautiful bathrooms that are always clean, always taken care of. Their strategic identity comes through in how they operate, how they design their buildings, how they finance different building projects, et cetera. It shows up everywhere. And so those are examples of strategic identity. And really what it's about is like, what is the thing that separates us from the others? And then planting your flag and going for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And so I think, don't be afraid to find that. Don't be afraid to identify it. And if you can identify it, put time and effort and energy into figuring out what it is and let it guide you. I think that's another thing too, is sometimes when we help people facilitate these things, sometimes people can get stuck in how they have been doing something or how they have been thinking about something in their business, how they've been thinking about their business in general. But it is important to open your mind, think about the possibilities, dream about what the future of your company can be. And so, to kind of wrap up here, what I would say for those listening, think about these elements of velocity: your purpose, your vision, your strategic identity, your core business, how you forecast your numbers and your target market, and put time and effort and energy into dreaming of the future. Pull yourself out of the day to day, pull yourself out of the putting out of fires that gets so easy to get lost in, and really look at these pieces that are so crucial for the future of your company and for making you different, for making you aligned, and for making you successful.
Mhm. Yeah, and you mentioned forecasting as the piece we didn't really dive into fully, but it's really paying attention to the financial side of it, right? To know what the numbers are moving forward from a
Mhm,
financial perspective. It is the final piece in that puzzle,
mhm,
right? So if you have purpose, why do we exist? You have vision, which is where we're going. You've got that core business and strategic identity, which is how, right? Like how and what. And then you've got target market, which is who. Forecasting is essentially like, and what does it cost for us to be able to do that? Where do we need to be from a numbers perspective to do this effectively?
mhm.
And so you need that piece in there as kind of the final element of velocity. And if you all of those pieces line up, right? Like if your finances are squared away and forecasted correctly, you've got your core business strategic identity, your business is humming, right? You've got that vision, you got the target market, you've got that purpose. All of those pieces in alignment is a very effective company story. And when everybody's on the same page, when everybody's aligned, your business just works better. You actually create movement, right? Not just going fast to go fast, but actually going fast to achieve the direction that you've set forth. I can't tell you how important this is in an organization, and it is often where we meet folks first.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've said it all.
I don't think there's anything else we could say if we
Nothing,
wanted.
nothing more. I think we're done. We're hanging up our
Yeah,
mics
unbelievably unbelievable that there's nothing else to say, but I believe it.
for sure. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining us on Business Velocity this week. Today's insights are just the beginning of enhancing your business's momentum. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts for more episodes that will help you turn your potential into performance. You can check out more about the 5 facets of business as well as the elements of velocity at theevolveddifference.com. And remember, the time is now to take these strategies, apply your learning, and achieve velocity. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.